getting to know other actors, joining communities. You've been on sets. That means assistant directors, directors, casting directors, casting assistants, the directors and production coordinators from those. So it's when you have opportunities, being a professional, treating people professionally, and being a positive beacon of light on those sets. Like, man, if you get cast and then you're like the diva, or you're being a bit of a jerk to people, especially to people who you think, like, sometimes people change how they act around people based on hierarchy. So they're like amazing to the casting director, but they treat a casting assistant like some peon, or like a waiter at a restaurant, where you talk to the manager really nice, but the waiter is just a lowly underling. And remember that those people talk, and casting assistants eventually often become casting directors, PAs eventually become assistant directors eventually become directors become producers. So treat all of those relationships like golden opportunities to foster them, to show people what you got. And in addition to your craft, a lot of it is like, you got to be a good actor, but if you're an incredible actor but you're also the biggest asshole in the world, then that's going to hurt you. But if you're an amazing actor and you're a great person on set, so they're like, this person delivers between action and cut, and they're really fun to be around, they're really positive, they go over and above to make people feel welcome and warm, and they make people laugh, then you're gonna get asked back to sets. So yeah, really foster those personal connections.
And I do highly recommend doing student films, because you never know where those students are going to be in the next 20 to 30 years. Because like if you do a student film now and it's with some director who knows a bunch of lighting and does all the editing as well, and then they work up and they become a PA, and then they become assistant directors, and then they become directors, and then they become producers. And you know what? That one student film that you did 20 years ago is now going to lead you into another 5-figure, 6-figure role for 7, 8 days, maybe 3 months on set for a project that you've hoped and dreamed for those 20 years. Like, you really never know where your personal connections are going to go. So take every relationship that you develop, take it as close to your heart as you can, because these people are going to develop into a family of yours. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about working in show business, is that eventually everything becomes part of a team, and sometimes you don't even realize it. And I love being a part of a team, because like when you're a part of a team, you're part of a group that's driving towards that one thing. And that's why I love sports personally. Like, I love watching the Leafs fight to get to the Stanley Cup playoffs and then compete to the Stanley Cup. And I love basketball for the same reasons. I want to see my teams make it to the finals and compete for that cup, because I know that for me, a championship is booking that 5 to 6-figure role, being on set every single day. That is my championship in my mind. That's what I'm fighting for. And I know that there's a team that's going to get me there. There's a team that surrounds me. Lars is part of that team. There's so many people that come through these doors that are part of that team that I there he is. Look at that. Strong. But like, you work on developing that team, because you never know where it's going to lead you. And that, I think, that is the most beautiful thing of all. And I always say, embrace the chaos. Life is chaos.
Right.
Embrace it, because you never know where it's going to take you.
Yeah, and I can vouch for student films too. When I was new in the business at the time, I didn't go to theater school or TV film school, so I started in stand-up and sketch comedy that led to dinner theater. I was fortunate enough to get a reco for an agent, so I started doing commercial work. But I did every student film. I've done a student film, I think, for every TV and film / theater school in the GTA, Greater Toronto area at some point. And then I did a ton of background, and that was my on-set training. That was my real life. Like, okay, what's a director? What's he saying? He's saying speeding, sound speed. Like I didn't know any of the lingo. I didn't know any of the positions. And I learned that by being on student films and through doing background.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do background for too long, but enough to get a sense of like, oh, okay. And I was on some huge productions. So you're like, holy shit, this is like 500 people on this thing between crew and extras and background and cast. And you really see at a top level what it's all about. And I'll give an example. One of the guys, he's a fantastic Toronto actor and writer and producer, Brian Quintero. And shout out to Brian, because way back in like 2013, we did a weird random short film. I want to say it was for Humber College, and we were both in it. We didn't know each other. We had a good day on set, and then we ended up being Facebook friends, of course, and hung out. And then 2017, he rented the studio here to do a casting session for a short film that he was co-producing. And the director of that came in and he met me and we kind of vibed. And then lo and behold, like a week later, I get a message. The director that Brian brought here was casting for a feature film, and they still had a role in it that they hadn't booked yet. So at the time, I booked a fairly big role in a feature that only came from a connection that I had through a student film 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I never would have known that, but it's just develop relationships early. And the biggest thing is, I think people don't realize, people are always reaching up. Like you're like reaching up for your savior to then pull you up. Like how can I meet an A-lister or meet someone famous and they can take a shining to me? Or I want to meet someone at a film festival or see a celebrity in a restaurant and pitch them my thing. It's like, look to your peers first. It is way, way, way more likely that the people that you grew up with in TV and film school, in theater school, the casting assistants that you developed good relationship with early on, the people you worked with on set early on in your career, way more likely that those are the people that are going to eventually lift you up than you DMing Tom Hanks and being like, can I be in Castaway too? Can I play the volleyball and can I play Wilson in Castaway 2?
Lars, you'd be great. You'd be great as Wilson.
It's called Castaway 2, but it's spelled T-O-O. Not this again. Not this again. So I think just realize that it's going to be your peer group around you. And sometimes I think people have the mistake of like, it's that crabs in a bucket mentality, where if you throw a bunch of crabs in a bucket, they're going to try to climb out, but then all the others are grabbing and pulling them down, and everyone's trying to get up while pushing the other ones down. It's the wrong mentality. Don't even try to get out of the bucket. Just stay in the bucket with all your crab buddies and be like, let's make a fucking crab movie in this bucket. If we're climbing out of the bucket, like, who knows? We don't know what's outside the bucket, but we got all of us here in this bucket. That's my crab analogy, bucket. Did not know that one was coming, but it's pretty good. That's a pretty good. Be like, I got an iPhone, I got some lights, I got a ring light, we got a bunch of crabs here. Let's make the best fucking crab movie ever.